She stood there quietly, clutching a piece of paper tighter than anything she'd ever held before. The people behind her sighed impatiently. The manager smirked and the tellers exchanged glances. A little girl, maybe 11 or 12 in simple clothes, standing in front of a marble counter surrounded by people in suits. She didn't belong here, at least that's what they thought. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" the man behind the counter asked with a laugh, waving the check she had handed him. His colleagues chuckled too. To them it was just a joke, a poor child pretending to have money. But what they didn't see were the trembling hands hiding behind her calm face. Or the reason she was really there. That check wasn't fake. It was real. And what was written on it was enough to silence an entire room and expose a truth this town had been hiding for years. Because behind that small, shy smile was a story that would shake them all. A story about respect, about judgment, and about how easily we forget that kindness costs nothing. Stay till the end because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew. Subscribe now for more powerful real-life inspired stories that awaken hearts and remind us that humanity still matters. Her name was Amira, and life had never been kind to her. She grew up on the quiet side of town, a place where streetlights flickered and buses rarely stopped. Every morning before school, she'd help her mother clean houses just to afford books that other kids took for granted. Her father had once worked at that very same bank, not behind the counter but as a janitor, mopping the floors that others walked across without ever noticing him. When he passed away, the only thing left behind was a letter, and a single envelope marked with the bank's logo. Amira didn't know what was inside until a few days ago, when her mother finally handed her that envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a check, her father's final saving, and a message that said, "This is for her education. Make sure she stands where I never could." That's why Amira was at the bank that morning. Not for charity, not for pity, but to deposit the one thing her father had left her, hope. But the moment she stepped in, wearing her faded blue shirt and scuffed shoes, all the eyes in the room seemed to say the same thing. "You don't belong here." None of them knew that behind her quiet steps was the weight of a promise her father made, one she was determined to keep no matter how many people laughed at her on the way. The sound of polished shoes clicking across the marble floor echoed through the bank. Amira stood still, clutching her father's check close to her chest. The line behind her grew restless, but she didn't move. She had rehearsed this moment all morning. She remembered her mother's words. "Keep your chin up, sweetheart. You're not asking for help. You're collecting what your father earned." The man at the counter, Mr. Collins, adjusted his tie as he scanned the check. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Sweetheart," he said in a tone dripping with mock kindness. "This check has too many zeros for you. Are you sure you didn't find it on the street?" A soft chuckle rippled from the tellers nearby. One whispered something and the rest laughed under their breath. Amira's fingers tightened around the strap of her small school bag, but she said nothing. Her silence made them laugh even harder. "Listen, sweetheart," Mr. Collins continued, waving the check. "You can't just walk in here and hand this over like it's a candy wrapper. Where's your guardian? Where did you even get this?" Amira met his eyes for the first time, steady, unwavering. "It was my father's," she said quietly. "He worked here." The laughter stopped for a second. Collins frowned. "Worked here? What's his name?" "Samuel Harris," she replied. A pause, a long one. Then Collins chuckled again, shaking his head. "The janitor? You're saying he left this to you?" The other employees snickered once more. "Maybe she wrote it herself," one of them whispered. Amira lowered her gaze, blinking back tears. Every word felt like a cut, but she didn't run. Instead, she placed the check back on the counter, slid it forward, and said, "You can check. It's real." Collins rolled his eyes, tapping a few keys on the computer just to prove her wrong. He expected the system to reject the number immediately, but then something strange happened. His smirk faltered. He stared at the screen, tapped again, leaned closer. The check was valid. The amount, shockingly high. His face drained of color. The laughter in the room died, replaced by a silence so heavy you could hear the clock ticking above the door. Amira stood motionless. Her eyes weren't angry, just tired. Collins swallowed, staring at the monitor like it was a mirror reflecting his own shame. "Excuse me," he muttered, calling over his supervisor. "Can you come take a look at this?" The manager walked over, saw the screen, and froze. Then he looked at the small girl standing before him, the one he'd nearly sent away moments earlier, and realized exactly who she was. Amira didn't move, didn't speak. The promise her father made was now staring them all in the face, written in ink, undeniable and more powerful than any word she could have said. The manager, Mr. Reynolds, adjusted his glasses, disbelief spreading across his face. The digits on the screen didn't lie. $850,000 transferred from the company's internal fund to the name Samuel Harris Trust. His throat went dry. "Who authorized this?" Collins whispered, his earlier arrogance dissolving into panic. Reynolds clicked deeper, scrolling through the transaction records. Then he froze. His own digital signature appeared on the approval line. His eyes widened. This was the retirement benefit fund Samuel had been owed for nearly 10 years, never claimed because of a paperwork dispute after his sudden death. "She's his daughter," Reynolds murmured. "And this? This money was rightfully hers all along." The lobby fell silent again, but this time not from mockery, from shame. Amira watched as the color drained from the faces around her. She didn't need revenge. She just wanted them to see her father the way she always had, as a man who worked, dreamed, and deserved dignity. Reynolds slowly turned toward her. "Miss Harris," he said softly, "I owe you a deep apology, and we all do." Collins lowered his head, voice trembling. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." Amira blinked back tears. "You didn't want to know," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Every word hit like a stone thrown into still water, rippling through the room, breaking through layers of pride and prejudice. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Please have a seat. We'll process this immediately." He gestured toward a chair, the same one she had been too afraid to sit in minutes ago. Amira sat, still holding her small school bag, still wearing her worn shoes. But this time the world had changed its gaze. Collins fetched her a glass of water, his hands shaking. Even the guard by the door avoided her eyes, suddenly realizing how easily they had all misjudged her. As the printer hummed and official papers slid out one by one, Amira's eyes wandered to a framed photo on the wall, a staff picture. There in the corner stood her father, Samuel Harris, holding a mop and smiling like the world hadn't forgotten him. She stood, walked over, and gently touched the glass. "You did it, Dad," she whispered. Mr. Reynolds approached, holding a folder. "This belongs to you now," he said, handing over the processed documents and a certified copy of the trust account. "And we'll be renaming our annual staff award after your father." Collins looked up, startled. "Sir?" "Yes," Reynolds replied. "The Samuel Harris Award for Integrity and Service. Because dignity doesn't come from a title or a uniform. It comes from the heart." Amira looked at him, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "Thank you." That's all he ever wanted, respect. Outside the bank, the sunlight felt warmer. The laughter that once cut her heart had turned into silence, a silence filled with realization. She looked at the check one last time, folded it neatly, and walked away with quiet strength, her father's legacy finally seen. The air outside the bank felt different, lighter, as if a heavy curtain had been pulled away from the world. Amira walked slowly along the sidewalk, clutching the folder against her chest. People passed by without knowing that the quiet girl in the blue shirt had just rewritten her father's story, not with anger, but with grace. She reached a small park nearby and sat on a wooden bench under an old maple tree. It was the same spot her father used to sit during lunch breaks, wiping sweat from his forehead after long hours of cleaning the same bank that had just mocked his daughter. She opened the folder, looked at the documents, the official recognition of her father's service, the restored pension, and the award in his name. But none of that mattered more than what she whispered next. "You were never just a janitor, Dad. You were the reason they learned what respect means." The breeze lifted her hair gently like a silent reply. A soft smile appeared on her face. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since he was gone, she felt peace. Back inside the bank, things changed too. A week later, a small ceremony took place. The staff who once laughed now stood in respectful silence as Mr. Reynolds unveiled a golden plaque. The Samuel Harris Award for Integrity and Service. It shone under the lights, reflecting not just a name, but a lesson. Mr. Collins stood there too, hands folded, eyes lowered. He had requested to be part of the committee that would choose the award's recipient every year. Guilt had transformed into humility,